The Grand Convergence Hall stretched so far that Marcus Webb could barely see the walls. 3,000 alien delegates filled the massive chamber, their forms ranging from floating energy beings to creatures with too many limbs to count. The air smelled wrong, processed through filters designed for 100 different atmospheres. Marcus stood alone in the center of the judgment circle, a glowing platform that marked him as the accused. He was the only human in the room. Above him, 12 massive platforms held the sovereign voices. The supreme rulers of the Galactic Council. High Arbiter, Velmuth spoke first, his voice echoing through translation devices that made his words understandable to every species present. Ambassador Marcus Webb of Earth, your species stands accused of unlawful expansion. You have violated the covenant of stillness. Marcus remained silent, his hands clasped behind his back. His military uniform was crisp and clean, sharp contrast to the elaborate robes and biological augmentations of the aliens around him. He had practiced this moment for months. Stay calm. Show no fear. Let them talk first, Counselor Thresh. A massive creature covered in chitinous armor slammed his claw against the console. 3 colony ships. 17 forbidden systems. You knew the law. Any species that establishes more than one colony world within their first century of space travel is deemed expansionist. Expansionists bring war. The Accord demands action. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Aliens of every shape activated their voting crystals. The lights bathed the hall in shades of agreement. Marcus watched it all happen. He had expected this. We colonized those worlds to survive, Marcus said, his voice amplified across the vast space. Earth is dying. Our population needs room to grow. We had no choice. Then you should have asked permission, Velmuth replied. The proper channels exist. You ignored them. The vote has been cast. The combined fleet will destroy your unauthorized colonies. Earth will be blockaded. Your species will remain on your birth world for the next 1,000 years. This is mercy. The word mercy echoed through the chamber like a threat. Species after species stood, their fleet commanders already preparing to leave. The judgment was final. Humanity would be contained, punished, and made an example for any other young species that dared to reach beyond their grasp. Marcus looked up at the thousands of alien faces. He saw certainty in their eyes. They believed humanity would simply accept this fate. They thought humans were like every other species they had conquered or controlled. He smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something they did not. You're going to attack Earth? Marcus asked quietly. The question carried weight that made nearby delegates pause. Several stopped walking. A few turned back to look at him. The vote is cast, human, Velmuth said. Accept your judgment with dignity. Marcus reached into his jacket. 300 weapons charged instantly across the chamber. Security forces tensed. But Marcus moved slowly, deliberately. He pulled out a small data chip and placed it on the glowing surface of the judgment circle. A hologram sprang to life, showing a star map. Earth hasn't been our capital for 30 years, Marcus said calmly. While you watched our 3 colony ships, you missed the other 200. While you counted our worlds, we counted yours. While you thought you were containing us, we were studying you. The hologram expanded. It showed not 3 colonies, but hundreds of human settlements, spreading like a spider's web through what the Council called uninhabited space. Gasps and shocked silence filled the chamber. Delegates rushed to their consoles, checking their own star charts, realizing that humans had been colonizing right under their sensors. So I'll ask again, Marcus said, his voice dropping lower. You're going to attack Earth? Our oldest world? The birthplace of our species? The symbolic heart of humanity? The hologram shifted. It zoomed in on Earth's orbital space. Delegates leaned forward, squinting at the display. Then they saw it. Structures hidden behind the moon. Massive installations in the asteroid belt. Defense platforms in high orbit. And ships. So many ships. Earth was not a helpless garden world waiting for mercy. Earth was a fortress bristling with weapons. Please do, Marcus whispered, but everyone heard it. The chamber erupted into chaos. Species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Counselor Thresh demanded more scans. Velmuth's S-energy form flickered with what might have been fear. Security forces moved toward Marcus, but he made no attempt to resist. "This is a trick," Thresh declared. "Visual deception. Our sensors would have detected such defenses. Would they?" Marcus asked. "You've been in space for 10,000 years. You've grown comfortable, predictable. You scan for threats, you understand. We built threats you've never imagined." Junior analyst, a nervous creature from the Lumina Collective, projected new data onto the main display. "High Arbiter, our deep space monitoring stations are reporting anomalies. Hundreds of them. Ships appearing where there should be nothing. They're using some kind of cloaking technology we can't identify." "Impossible," Velmuth said. But his voice lacked conviction. "You've had peace for 10,000 years," Marcus continued. "We've had war for our entire history. You've fought maybe a dozen conflicts in your civilized era. We've had thousands. You learned to build. We learned to destroy. You created the Council. We created weapons you can't even detect." He let that sink in. The guards reached him, placing restraints on his wrists. Marcus did not resist. He had said what he came to say. "The combined fleet launches within the hour," Velmuth announced, trying to regain control. "Regardless of these claims, Earth will answer for its crimes." "Good," Marcus said as the guards led him away. "We were hoping you'd say that." They took him to a detention cell deep in the station. The room was small, designed for humanoid prisoners. A force field hummed across the entrance. Marcus sat on the bench and waited. He pulled out a small device from his belt before the guards could confiscate it. They were not fast enough. He pressed a button. Somewhere far away, a signal transmitted. On Earth, President Alina Frost stood in the war room beneath New Geneva. Around her, military commanders monitored displays showing the Council station, the gathering combined fleet, and the true extent of human defenses. Admiral James Carter stood at her right hand. "The signal just came in," Carter reported. "Marcus executed the plan perfectly." "They took the bait." "All of it?" Frost asked. "Every bit. They're mobilizing the combined fleet. 3,000 warships from 40 species. They'll hit Earth with everything they have." Frost nodded slowly. "Then we proceed to the next phase. Activate Protocol Omega. Recall all Shadow Fleet elements. Open the deep space hangars. It's time to show them what we really are." Round the room, commanders relayed orders. Deep beneath Earth's surface, massive hangar doors that had been hidden for decades began to open. Ships emerged, sleek and deadly, built with technologies the Council did not know humans possessed. These were not exploration vessels. These were weapons of war. Admiral Carter pulled up a tactical display. It showed human forces scattered across the galaxy, hidden ships that were never registered, never counted, never suspected. "Some species hunt," he said quietly. "Some build. Some think. Humans do all three. And we've been preparing for this moment since we learned we weren't alone in the universe." General Rachel Torres, commander of Soul Defense, added her report. "The defense grid is fully operational. Weapon platforms are charged. The trap is set. When they arrive, they'll find exactly what Marcus promised them." Frost looked at Earth on the main display. Blue and green and beautiful. The homeworld. The planet that 3,000 alien warships were about to attack. She felt no fear, only certainty. "Let them come," she said. In his cell, Marcus counted down on his fingers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A distant explosion rocked the station. Alarms began to wail. Guards ran past his cell, shouting in their native languages. Emergency lights activated. Marcus smiled and settled back on the bench. Right on time, he said to himself. The combined fleet was gathering. They would jump to Earth within hours. They believed they were going to contain a dangerous young species. They believed they had the advantage of numbers, experience, and superior technology. They were about to learn the most important lesson in human military. History, never underestimate a species that has survived by fighting itself for thousands of years. The war had begun. The combined fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of Earth's solar system. 3,000 warships appeared in formation, a display of force designed to intimidate any species into immediate surrender. Admiral Cresva of the Hegemony stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, her forearms moving across tactical displays with practiced efficiency. "Scan for defensive positions," she ordered. "Prepare bombardment solutions for the orbital installations." Her tactical officer worked quickly. "I'm reading minimal defense activity, Admiral. A few dozen ships in orbit. Some weapon platforms. Nothing that could threaten us." Cresva nodded. "As expected. They're young, unprepared. We'll disable their defenses and establish the blockade within hours." Ships from 40 different species moved in perfect coordination, the result of thousands of years of joint military operations. They had done this before to dozens of upstart species. The humans would be no different. Then the sensor screamed. Happening," Cresva demanded. "I'm reading new contacts. Hundreds of them. They just appeared on scopes." The tactical officer's voice rose in pitch. "Admiral, they were hiding. Cloaked somehow. I'm counting 800 ships. No, wait, over 1,000. They're everywhere." The tactical display transformed from a simple advance to a nightmare of red hostile markers. Ships appeared from behind asteroids that were not asteroids. Installations that had seemed inactive suddenly powered up. Empty space erupted with weapon signatures. The humans had not been waiting in orbit. They had been waiting in ambush, spread across 3 astronomical units. "Impossible," Cresva breathed. "Our intelligence said 200 ships maximum." Intelligence was wrong, her second officer said flatly. "I'm counting 1,800 human vessels. And Admiral, they're using weapon systems I've never seen before." The first attack hit before Cresva could give orders. The flagship's shields flared as something punched through their celebrated barrier technology. Alarms shrieked across the bridge. Damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. On Earth, President Frost watched the battle unfold from the war room. The massive display showed every ship, every weapon, every tactical maneuver. General Torres provided commentary. "They bunched their fleet just as we predicted. They're used to fighting species that respect formation warfare. They don't understand how humans fight." "We cheat," Admiral Carter said with grim satisfaction. "We studied every species in that fleet. The Hegemony's crystalline shields? We built harmonic disruptors specifically to break them. The Brel's armored hulls? Plasma cutters designed for their exact metallurgy. The Catharias organic ships? Biological weapons that eat their living hulls." The battle was not a fight. It was a slaughter. Human ships moved with precision, targeting specific weaknesses in each alien vessel. Technologies the Council had never encountered tore through their defenses. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles were crippled in minutes. "How long until they realize they need to retreat?" Frost asked. 3 minutes, Carter predicted. "Then we spring the real trap." On the Council station, Counselor Thresh watched the battle feeds in horror. The massive Brel warrior had seen combat for most of his long life. He had never seen anything like this. Human weapons seemed impossible. Their tactics were brutal and efficient. The combined fleet was being destroyed. "How did they advance so quickly?" Velmoth demanded. His energy form pulsed erratically. "They've only been in space for 80 years. Young Lumina analyst raised a tentacle hesitantly. "Hi, Arbiter. I found something in our historical archives. Humans have only been in space 80 years, but they've been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Over 10,000 years of continuous warfare. They've had more military conflicts in the last century than most species have in millennia." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The Council had assumed humans would need to learn how to fight in space, but humans already knew how to fight. They had simply applied those skills to a new environment. "Order a retreat," Velmoth said. "Immediate withdrawal. It's too late." Thresh rumbled, watching his people's ships die on the displays. "They're already cutting off our escape vectors." He was right. As Admiral Cresva finally gave the retreat order, her fleet turned to flee. That was when humanity's true trap sprang. Devices activated across the combat zone, flooding space with reality-distorting fields. Jump drives refused to engage. The combined fleet could not escape. They were locked in the system with Earth's defense force. Jump disruptors, Cresva's tactical officer reported, voice shaking. They're using banned technology. We can't leave. Cresva stared at her displays. Half her fleet was already disabled or destroyed. The rest were scattered, disorganized, fighting for survival against an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. How did they know? In his cell, Marcus watched a guard pass by. The young Lumina was staring at a datapad, following the battle. His luminescent body flickered with fear. Your people, the guard whispered. What are you? We're human, Marcus said simply. We're the species that survived ice ages and plagues and world wars. We're the species that split the atom and walked on our moon and decided the stars belonged to us. We're the species you just declared war on. He leaned forward. And we've been preparing for you since the day we learned we weren't alone. The station shook again. More explosions. Closer this time. The guard's eyes widened. What's happening? That would be Team 2, Marcus noted. Right on schedule. While you're all watching the battle at Earth, my people are hitting targets across the galaxy. Lies, the guard said, but he did not sound convinced. Marcus gestured to the datapad. Check the reports. Your homeworld. The Council's military headquarters. The Great Archive itself. We're not just defending Earth. We're attacking everywhere at once. The guard checked his device. His body dimmed with shock. No, this is impossible. But it was not impossible. It was happening. While the Council had focused all their attention on the massive fleet heading to Earth, human forces had positioned themselves at key targets across known space. Now they were striking simultaneously. Not invasions, demonstrations, precision attacks that proved humanity could hit anywhere they wanted. On Cathar. High Commander Vex watched his orbital defenses shatter under human assault. He prepared for planetary bombardment, said goodbye to his family, and waited for death. It never came. Instead, he received a transmission. Your fleet at Earth has been disabled. Your defenses here are neutralized. We could destroy your world. We won't. We didn't want this war. You forced it on us. But we'll be merciful where you would not have been. Stand down. Recall your forces. This is your only warning. The transmission ended with a kinetic strike that split an uninhabited mountain in half. The message was clear. We can hit anything we want. On Earth, Admiral Carter received reports from all fronts. The combined fleet is scattered. The attacks on Council worlds have achieved objectives. We've proven we can strike anywhere. Pull back, Frost ordered. We've made our point, Madame President. We have the advantage. We could force a complete surrender. No, Frost said firmly. We've shown we can attack. Now we show we can also choose mercy. That's how we win the peace that follows. In the council chamber, Velmuth addressed the panicking delegates. This changes everything. We must sue for peace. Negotiate terms. But Thresh shook his head. They're not done. This was just the opening move. Humans don't fight for victory. They fight for dominance. Watch. On the tactical displays, human forces began coordinated withdrawal. They had won the battle at Earth. They had struck targets across the galaxy. And now they were pulling back, as if to say, we could have done worse. But Council intelligence intercepted something. A fragment of human military communication. A countdown. Something called Protocol Helios. It was at 87% completion. Analysts worked frantically to decode it, but the encryption was beyond anything they had seen. Whatever humanity had planned, the battles were just the beginning. And in the intercepted chatter, one word kept repeating. Genesis, deep beneath the Australian outback. President Frost stood in a facility that officially did not exist. The Genesis Control Center had been built over 30 years ago, carved from solid rock to miles below the surface. Around her, Scientists and military personnel monitored systems that represented humanity's greatest secret. Dr. Robert Keene, the elderly physicist who had pioneered the project, stood beside a massive holographic display. Madam President, Protocol Helios is at 92%. We'll reach full activation within 12 hours. Explain it to them, Frost said, gesturing to the military commanders who had gathered. They need to understand what we're about to do. Keene activated the display. It showed 7 points of light positioned around the galactic core. The Council has maintained control of the galaxy through 3 mechanisms. Superior numbers, which we've now challenged. Established trade routes, which we've disrupted. And the Great Archive? Admiral Carter leaned forward. The Archive is how they control knowledge. Every species that joins the Council uploads their discoveries. In return, they get access to millions of years of accumulated wisdom. But the Council decides what gets shared and what remains restricted. We were never given access, General Torres added bitterly. Too young, they said. Too dangerous. Forced us to innovate everything ourselves, Keene continued. Every technology, every advancement, through independent research, it took decades. Cost fortunes. But it meant our science evolved along paths the Council never explored. He expanded the display to show the 7 structures more clearly. They were massive, each one larger than a moon. These are quantum computational arrays. We've been building them in secret for 20 years. They're positioned in a perfect sphere around the galactic core, connected by Ansible technology for instantaneous communication. We built our own archive, Frost said quietly, but we're not keeping it locked away. Protocol Helios will broadcast every piece of human knowledge, freely to every species in the galaxy. Science, medicine, history, philosophy, military, technology, everything. Implications hit the commanders like a physical blow. Every species will have access to our innovations, Torres breathed, including the weapons we just used, AG. Onst them. And the medical technology, Dr. Keene added. The Peleron plague that's killing millions? We have the cure. The Brell's genetic degradation? We developed treatments. The Catharies ecosystem collapse. We know how to reverse it. The door opened. Guards entered with an unexpected visitor. Counselor Thresh ducked through the entrance, his massive form barely fitting. The human soldiers tensed, but Frost raised a hand. I requested to be brought here, Thresh explained. Ambassador Marcus suggested I witness this. To understand what you're really doing. You tried to destroy us, Frost said coldly. I tried to contain what I perceived as a threat, Thresh corrected. I was wrong, he gestured to the display. This will destabilize the entire galactic order, Frost said. It will give every species the choice you denied us. Equality through shared knowledge. The Council's monopoly on power ends today. On the Council station, Marcus was released from detention. He made his way to an observation deck and watched as Protocol Helios activated. 7 points of light appeared across the galaxy, visible even from this distance. The quantum broadcasters coming online. The network synchronizing data began to flow. Every communication system in Council space suddenly received a massive burst of information. The Great Archive's carefully guarded secrets unlocked. Knowledge flooded outward. Species that had waited centuries for specific technologies suddenly possessed them. Medical treatments. Agricultural advances. Clean energy systems. And yes, weapons technology. The same innovations humanity had used to defeat the combined fleet. But something unexpected happened. Instead of chaos, instead of every species using the knowledge to attack each other, something else emerged. Communication. Species that the Council had kept isolated suddenly had the tools to talk directly. Old grievances surfaced, but so did opportunities for cooperation. Ambassador Lyra of the Peleron Collective was among the first to respond. Her people had been dying of the plague for a generation. The Council had promised cures, but always delayed, always demanded more concessions. Now the human cure flooded into Peleron medical systems. Within hours, Patience began to recover. She broadcast a message across all council channels. The humans offer freely what the council promised but never delivered. I call for a vote of no confidence in the current leadership. I call for Earth to be granted full council membership. I call for an end to this war that serves no one. Other species echoed her words. Not all of them. The old guard, the founding species who had held power for 10,000 years, resisted. But their authority bled away with every species that downloaded human knowledge and found it worked exactly as advertised in the council chamber. Velma stood alone. The seats around him were empty as delegates rushed to deal with the crisis on their homeworlds. Thresh found him there, uncharacteristically quiet. We maintained peace for 10,000 years, Velmuth said softly. We maintained control, Thresh corrected. There's a difference. Humanity just taught us that lesson. Back on Earth, Frost watched the political landscape transform in real time. Species were choosing sides. Some remained loyal to the Council. Others declared independence. A few reached out directly to Earth, seeking alliance. It's working, Admiral Carter said with amazement. They're not fighting each other. They're talking. We gave them a reason to, Frost replied. Knowledge is only threatening when it's hoarded. When it's shared, it becomes a foundation for cooperation. But not everyone agreed. Admiral Cresfa, watching her authority crumble as species abandoned the combined fleet, made a desperate decision. She rallied the hardliners, the species who saw humanity's actions as an existential threat. 200 ships, damaged but still functional, prepared for one final action. They would ram Earth itself. If they could not maintain control, they would eliminate the source of the chaos. Cresfa addressed her remaining fleet. Humanity has poisoned the galaxy with their reckless sharing of dangerous knowledge. They must be stopped. We set course for Earth. Maximum speed. No negotiations. We end this threat permanently. The ships jumped. Earth's defense forces, depleted from the earlier battle and scattered across the system, scrambled to respond. Admiral Carter ran calculations and felt his blood run cold. We need 12 minutes to reposition the defense grid, he told President Frost. I don't think we have 12 minutes. Frost looked at Earth on the main display. The birthplace of humanity. 4 billion people living their lives, aware that 200 warships were about to crash into their world at near light speed. Sound the evacuation, she said quietly. Get as many underground as possible. Priority to children. Madam President, there is no defense, James. Do what you can. Save who you can. She straightened her shoulders. But the main fleet won't reach us in time. So we face this the way we've always faced extinction, together. The alert went out. Across Earth, billions received the warning. Impact in 9 minutes. The countdown appeared on every screen across Earth. 9 minutes until impact. Cities activated emergency protocols. Families rushed toward underground shelters. In New York, Tokyo, Mumbai, Lagos, people looked up at the sky knowing death was falling toward them. President Frost stood in the war room. Watching the 200 warships accelerate toward Earth, her military commanders worked frantically. But the mathematics were brutal. The defense fleet could stop maybe half the incoming ships. The rest would hit the planet. The impacts would devastate continents. Evacuate the coastal cities, Frost ordered. Underground shelters to maximum capacity. Children first. Admiral Carter's hands shook as he coordinated the defense. We can deploy the orbital platforms. They might take out another 30 ships. But that still leaves, I know, Frost said quietly. Do your best, James. That's all any of us can do. 8 minutes. On the council station. Marcus stood at an observation window with Counselor Thresh and a dozen other delegates who had chosen to watch humanity's final moments. Below them, Earth rotated peacefully, unaware of what was coming. I'm sorry, Thresh said. His massive body seemed smaller somehow. Admiral Cresfa represents the old ways. The fear of change. I tried to stop her, but fanatics don't listen to reason, Marcus finished. He kept his eyes on Earth. We knew this might happen. We're a young species, maybe too bold. but we don't regret trying. Ambassador Lyra stood nearby, tears streaming down her face. Your protocol Helios will survive. Your knowledge will live on. That matters, does it? Marcus asked softly. Knowledge without people to use it is just data. We wanted to be part of something larger. Instead, we might have destroyed ourselves trying. 7 minutes. Then something impossible happened. New contacts appeared on the sensors. Not dozens, hundreds. Ships exiting jump space between Earth and the suicide fleet. But these were not human ships. They were council ships. Peleron medical frigates. Lumina ceremonial guards. Brel warships. Cathari biocruisers. Species from across the galaxy, many of whom had been attacking Earth just hours ago. They formed a defensive line in front of the human homeworld. In the war room, Admiral Carter's voice cracked. Madam President, we're receiving hails from over 400 vessels. They're positioning themselves between Earth and the incoming fleet. They're offering to defend us. Frost could not speak. She watched as species that owed humanity nothing, that humanity had fought against, positioned themselves to die protecting Earth. Ambassador Lyra's voice broadcast across all channels. Humanity gave us the cure to the plague that has killed millions of my people. They gave it freely, asking nothing in return, even as we attacked them. We will not stand by while their world dies. Illumina captain added. They showed us knowledge when they could have kept it. We show them courage, Brel warrior transmitted. They fought with honor. We defend with honor. 6 minutes. Admiral Cresfa saw the wall of ships forming ahead. Her tactical officer reported with increasing panic. Over 400 vessels between us and Earth. Admiral multiple species. Many are from our own alliance. They're not engaging, just blocking. Move through them, Cresfa ordered. Her voice was cold, but her hands trembled. They can die with the humans if they choose. But her crew hesitated. Ships from their own alliance. Friends serving on those vessels. Family members. The suicide mission had seemed noble when the target was an enemy. It seemed monstrous when the casualties included their own people. Admiral, her helmsman, said quietly, My brother serves on the Brel ship in our path. He sent me a message. He says the humans earned this defense. He asks me to stand down. Similar reports flooded in across the suicide fleet. Crews recognizing their own people in the defensive line. The fanatics remained committed, but doubt spread like a virus through the fleet. 5 minutes. President Frost opened a direct channel to Admiral Cresfa. The Hegemony Admiral's face appeared on the display, proud and rigid and terrified all at once. You want to destroy Earth? Frost asked. You see us as a threat that must be eliminated? Fine, but look at what's happening. Species that hated each other yesterday are defending us today. Not because we're perfect. Not because we're innocent. But because we offered something different? You offered chaos, Cresfa said. The destruction of order. We offered choice, Frost countered. The freedom to grow without someone else controlling the limits. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's dangerous. Us. But it's how real progress happens. She paused. You can kill us. You probably will. Even with those ships defending us, some of you will get through. Earth will burn. Billions will die. And then what? You think the galaxy will forgive you? For minutes, Velmuth's voice cut into the channel, broadcasting from the council station. Admiral Cresfa, stand down. That's a direct order from the High Arbiter. You have no authority anymore. Cresfa shouted. The council is broken. Your power is gone. Then I'm asking, Velmuth said, and his voice was smaller now, almost human in its vulnerability. Not as an arbiter. As someone who watched the galaxy change today in ways I never imagined. Please, there's been enough death. 3 minutes. The suicide fleet continued forward, but its formation was breaking. Ships peeled away. Not many, but enough. Cresfa counted her remaining forces. Fewer than 100 now? Still enough to devastate? Earth, but not the overwhelming strike she had planned. The species defending Earth held position. They did not fire. They simply existed as a wall, their shields at maximum, saying without words, "If you want to kill humanity, you must kill us first." Cresfa thought of her daughter. Serving on a hegemony ship in that defensive line, the girl had sent a message. "Mother, please. They're not what you think. 2 minutes." On Earth, final evacuations proceeded. Admiral Carter gave orders to seal the deep shelters. President Frost remained in the war room. If Earth fell, she would fall with it. 1 minute, Cresfa closed her eyes, opened them, looked at her crew, young and loyal and trusting, willing to die because she ordered it. She thought about what humanity had done with Protocol Helios. They could have kept their advantages, could have bargained with their cures. They did not. They just gave everything away, even to their enemies. "All ships," she said, and her voice broke on the words. "Powered down weapons. Disengage engines. We stand down." The countdown stopped at 34 seconds. Across Earth, billions of people received the all-clear signal. The collective exhale of a species that had stared into extinction and survived in the war room. President Frost collapsed into her chair. Admiral Carter gripped her shoulder, crying openly. General Torres stared at the display showing the suicide fleet, now adrift, surrounded by ships that had chosen to defend Earth over following orders. Marcus watched from the station as Thresh placed a claw on his shoulder. "Your people are either the bravest or the craziest I've ever encountered. Why not both?" Marcus asked, then started laughing, unable to stop, tears streaming down his face. The war was over. Humanity had won. Not through destruction, but through a galaxy that chose to defend them. The real work was about to begin. 6 months passed. The new council chamber was twice the size of the old one, designed to accommodate the 40 additional species granted full voting rights after Protocol Helios changed everything. The architecture was different too. No elevated platforms. No judgment circles. Every delegate sat at the same level. President Frost addressed the assembly. This time she stood among equals, not below them. 6 months ago, we were at war. Today, we're partners in something unprecedented. Protocol Helios continues to broadcast freely. 300 species have implemented human medical technology. 200 have adopted our clean energy systems. 87 have joined the Free Knowledge Initiative, sharing their own discoveries openly. She looked across the chamber at the sea of alien faces. Some were friendly, others remained suspicious, but all of them listened. The old council maintained order through control, Frost continued. The new council maintains peace through cooperation. It won't be easy. It won't be perfect. We'll disagree, argue, maybe even fight sometimes, but we'll do it as equals. Velmuth spoke next. He no longer held the title of High Arbiter. Instead, he served as coordinator of cultural exchange, helping species navigate the new reality. Humanity taught us a difficult lesson. Peace maintained through suppression is just delayed conflict. Real peace requires freedom, risk, trust. Admiral Cresfa sat in the diplomatic section. She had been stripped of military rank, but granted immunity in exchange for testimony about the old council's secret war plans. "I tried to destroy Earth because I feared change," she said when called upon. "I was wrong. Change happens regardless. The question is whether we guide it wisely or let it control us." Ambassador Marcus stood, representing Earth alongside 4 other human delegates. No longer alone. No longer judged. We didn't want war. We wanted partnership. When you denied us, we prepared. When you attacked, we defended. When we won, we chose mercy. That's what humanity offers. The courage to fight when necessary, and the wisdom to forgive when possible. The vote was called. The new Galactic Accord. Species rights, freedom of colonization with environmental protections, shared knowledge repositories, mutual defense pacts, open trade, democratic representation. Every species received 1 vote regardless of size or power. The measure passed. Not unanimously. Never unanimously when dealing with hundreds of species. but the majority agreed. A new era had begun. After the meeting, Marcus stood at an observation window with Thresh, Lyra, and several others. They watched ships from across the galaxy dock at the station. Trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, science expeditions. The galaxy was more connected now than at any point in its history. "Do you think it will last?" Lyra asked. "This peace we've built." Marcus considered the question. On Earth, philosophers and politicians debated the same thing. Ask me in 1,000 years. Humans aren't great at long-term predictions. We live in the moment. "Given that you nearly went extinct 6 months ago," Thresh rumbled, "that's reasonable." They stood in comfortable silence. Earth rotated into view, blue and green and alive. A testament to the species that refused to be contained. On Earth, Admiral Carter walked through the memorial built to honor the day the galaxy chose to defend humanity. Names were carved into black stone, not human names. Alien names. The crew members who had positioned their ships between Earth and death. Some had survived. Others had not. All were remembered. General Torres joined him. "Strange, isn't it? We prepared for war for 30 years. We built weapons and fleets and defense grids. But in the end, what saved us was not our weapons. It was our willingness to share what we learned." "We're not naive enough to think everyone will always choose peace," Carter replied. "But we're hopeful enough to give them the option." Dr. Keene, now celebrated across the galaxy as the architect of Protocol Helios, worked on the next phase. Expanding the network. Allowing more species to contribute their knowledge. The project had grown beyond humanity's control, but that was the point. It belonged to everyone now. In the Genesis Control Center, technicians monitored the 7 quantum arrays. They had become the most important structures in the galaxy. More species wanted to build additional nodes. The network could expand. Knowledge could flow faster. But Keene was cautious. "We have to be careful," he told his team. "Information is power. We gave it away because we believed in equality. But not everyone shares that belief. There will be those who try to control the network, use it for dominance. We need safeguards." The team worked on encryption protocols, access controls, and fail-safes. The network would remain open but protected. Available to all, but controlled by none. President Frost visited the memorial on Earth. She stood before the wall of defenders, reading alien names she could barely pronounce. These beings had saved humanity. She would never forget that. "Madam President," an aide interrupted. "The Council is calling. There's been a development." Frost returned to the war room. The display showed a new region of space, far beyond explored territories. Long-range sensors had detected something. Structures, ships, technologies that did not match any known species. "First contact?" Carter asked. "Possibly," Frost replied. "Or something that's been out there all along, watching." The Council was already debating. Should they send an expedition? Should they wait? Should they prepare for potential threats? The discussions were heated but productive. Every species had a voice. Every concern was heard. "We should send a delegation," Marcus proposed. "A mixed group. Humans, Peleron, Brel, Lumina, Cathari. Show them the new galaxy. Show them we come in peace but prepared for anything." The proposal passed. A fleet would be assembled. Not a war fleet. An exploration fleet with defensive capabilities. They would venture into the unknown together. Thresh volunteered to join the expedition. So did Lyra and Cresfa, seeking redemption through discovery rather than destruction. Marcus would lead the diplomatic effort. Admiral Carter would command the military escort as they prepared for departure. Marcus stood one last time at the observation window of the Council station. Earth shone in the distance, no longer a target, but a symbol. The planet that changed the galaxy. "Ready?" Thresh asked, approaching from behind. Marcus admitted. But that's never stopped humans before. They walked together toward the docking bay. Behind them, the new council chamber buzzed with activity. Delegates from hundreds of worlds working together, arguing, compromising, building something better than what came before. Not perfect. Never perfect. But B. Eder, the exploration fleet launched 3 weeks later. 60 ships from 20 species. They jumped into the unknown, seeking answers to new questions. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. Now they would discover what else was out there on Earth. Children learned about the day the galaxy stood together. The story became legend, passed down through generations. The species that was almost destroyed but chose mercy. The galaxy that learned to share. The peace built not through domination, but through understanding. President Frost's term ended 2 years later. She retired to a small house overlooking the ocean, watching ships streak across the sky. Human ships. Alien ships. All of them free to travel where they wished. Her successor carried on the work, expanding human influence through cooperation rather than conquest. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still species that clung to the old ways. But the trend was clear. Cooperation beat isolation. Shared knowledge beat hoarded secrets. Freedom beat control. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as catalysts. They had forced change not through domination, but through demonstration. They had proven that a young species could teach old ones new lessons, and they had done it not by being stronger, but by being willing to fight for what they believed in and forgive when the fighting ended. Marcus returned to Earth after 3 years exploring the outer reaches. He brought with him representatives of 2 new species, both eager to join the council. Both had received Protocol Helios broadcasts and wanted to be part of the new galaxy. He stood in the same spot where he had once stood in the Judgment Circle, accused and alone. Now he stood surrounded by friends from a dozen worlds. The galaxy had not just accepted humanity. It had embraced what humanity represented: change, growth, hope. Is it worth it? Lyra asked him once. Everything you risked? Marcus thought of the billions who nearly died, the lives lost in the battles, the fear and uncertainty of those terrible days. Then he thought of what followed: the cooperation, the shared knowledge, the future being built together. Yes, he said simply. It was worth it. The galaxy agreed. Humanity had declared war when pushed to the edge. But they had won peace by offering something better than victory. They had won by giving the galaxy a choice, and the galaxy had chosen wisely. The end of one era, the beginning of another. The stars belonged to everyone now, and humanity, the species that refused to be contained, stood ready to explore them together with the friends it made and the enemies they had forgiven. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in galactic history, it belonged to everyone equally. That was humanity's true victory. Not the battles won, but the peace that followed. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.